When we go to visit a physician, we're supposed to be comforted by the fact that they've taken the Hippocratic Oath, a solemn vow to do their absolute best in providing care and treatment for what ails us. Doesn't matter if we're criminals, 5-pack-a-day smokers, or that we broke our tibia for social media cred. The oath covers all. Except it doesn't. For one thing, the Hippocratic Oath isn't any kind of legally binding agreement. It's more of a ritual, like wearing a gown and cap at graduation. For another, one 2011 survey indicated only 80% of respondents recited an oath, and other surveys have indicated many of them may have actually recited the lasagna oath, which is a real thing. Hi, I'm Justin Dodd, and that's just one of the many misconceptions about 50 well-known professions we'll be treating in this episode. And hey, we're always looking for more, so go ahead and drop a common misconception about your job in the comments. I want to know what I'm getting wrong about online dating ghostwriters. Anyway, let's get started. The Hippocratic Oath is often attributed to, but may not have been written by, Hippocrates, a Greek philosopher who wanted health to take a more science-based approach. The original oath had some edicts that would be hard to follow today, like promising to financially support your teachers. And contrary to popular belief, which is a statement we use a lot on this show, the original oath didn't contain the phrase, "First, do no harm." It was way more verbose, with doctors swearing to abstain from whatever is deleterious and mischievous, and to give no deadly medicine to anyone if asked. It also asked professionals to swear by the Greek gods, something we often skip today. They just need to swear to Etna, the Greek god of overbilling. Got 'em. But there isn't really a singular Hippocratic Oath. It's been updated periodically to reflect modern times, including a particularly popular 1964 modernization by Dr. Louis Lasagna, hence the Lasagna Oath. Instead, some medical schools allow students to write their own version they'd like to recite. If your doctor is a good one, it's not because of a pledge, but because they paid attention in school. And speaking of higher education, you need to go to law school to become a lawyer. Law school. It's got big, giant textbooks that line bookshelves, long nights studying, prickly law professors who seem like giant jerks, but who are really shaping you to become the best legal mind you can possibly be. That's the only road to becoming a lawyer, right? Objection, Your Honor. While many states require a law degree in order to become a licensed lawyer, not all of them do. California, for example, permits lawyers to gain experience in a law office by studying under an attorney or judge. Vermont allows for the same path, which is known as reading the law. But if it seems like you're getting away on a technicality, this type of education can often take longer than just going to law school. And yes, you still need to pass the bar exam in the state you intend to practice in. By the way, there is a slight difference between an attorney and a lawyer. Both practice law, but attorney usually denotes someone who practices in court. So if you're working with a lawyer or attorney and ask where they got their law degree from and they say they don't have one, it's not necessarily cause for alarm. Although yes, definitely ask more questions at that point. Architects need to be able to draw well. Being an architect seems like it involves a lot of sitting hunched over a drawing table, carefully outlining how a nice new building is gonna look. These intricate drawings are then used as a template for the actual engineering work. Being able to draw well seems like a prerequisite for the job. Not really. While being a good illustrator is certainly helpful, being a terrible one isn't likely to hold an architect back in their career. That's because most preliminary architectural drawings are mainly for the architect or their colleagues. These drawings offer a basic idea of what the design is going to look like. When it's time to present that idea to a client or to construction experts, architects typically turn to imaging design software. It becomes less of a freehand drawing issue and more of a computer skill. If you can draw well, then you might stand a better chance of communicating your vision in those early stages. But sketching out something that would look good on your parents' refrigerator is not going to harm you. Pilots fly for free. While it is true that pilots get airfare perks, it's not as simple as jumping on a plane on a whim. According to the Flying by Numbers website, pilots are frequently eligible for standby tickets, or tickets that are available shortly before a flight takes off for a discounted price. In an airline pilot's case, that can mean almost free except for the tax on the ticket, which is the pilot's responsibility. And it's not exactly first-class treatment. Pilots only get a seat if the plane isn't full after everyone else has boarded. A pilot can opt for a normal airfare ticket and get it at a discounted rate of up to 50% and maybe even more, but it's far from free. The one situation where pilots fly completely free, if the airline is shuttling them to their destination for work. And even then, they'll likely have to travel in the cockpit's extra seat or jump seat and in full uniform. Flight attendants exist to serve you. A lot of people seem to think that flight attendants exist solely to give you soda and snacks, but in reality, they're mostly there for your safety. Before they can go up in the air, well, in a professional capacity at least, they have to go through weeks of flight attendant training, learning emergency medical aid, how to handle water evacuations and turbulence, memorizing how planes work, all sorts of things. It's way more than pushing around a cart. School teachers get paid summers off. There aren't many jobs more important than being a teacher. Quite honestly, teachers deserve to make a whole lot more than they do. And while having paid summers off is often thought of as a major benefit, that's not really how it works. While not every school district is the same, in many cases teachers do not get paid for the summer. Instead, districts give them the choice of getting their full salary over 10 months, with 2 unpaid months, or having the earnings spread out over 12 months. Obviously, if you have the option of being paid less over 12 months, then you're not receiving 12 months of salary. Some teachers budget for their reduced income, while others opt to get a summer job. Either way, they are not paid to sit in the pool. Real estate agent and realtor are the same thing. So, you've saved up enough money to buy a house. Congratulations! Now you can enter a destructive, soul-eating market of reduced inventory and buyers offering tens of thousands over a home's list price. When selecting someone to guide you through this hellscape, you might think that there's really no difference at all between a real estate agent and a realtor. You absolute goofball. With an approved training course and license, pretty much anyone can become a real estate agent and transact the buying or selling of property. But a realtor is different. For one thing, the word has a capital R. That's because it's a trademark of the National Association of Realtors, which has a kind of Hippocratic oath of its own. Realtors must pledge to put the needs of their clients above all else and to provide ethical assistance. Most realtors are real estate agents, but not all agents are realtors. Does that mean agents aren't ethical? No, of course not. Just that realtors might be held to a little bit more accountability when they neglect to mention your new home once belonged to a Manson family member. Astronauts need to have military experience. Only the best of the best get to become an astronaut for NASA. But do they need a pilot's license or military experience at all? According to NASA, flight time is not a requirement to get blasted into the galaxy. While you can enter the astronaut candidate program with at least 1,000 hours of flying time in a jet aircraft, either commercially or in the military, you can also get in by having at least 2 years of professional experience with a master's degree or 2 years of work toward a doctoral program in one of the STEM fields, or various other ways that do not need the military. Paleontologists only study dinosaurs. Digging up fossilized dinosaurs is a cool job, and it's largely the purview of paleontologists, or scientists who seek to uncover how these creatures lived millions of years ago. And while that might be the most interesting part of the job to others, it is not all paleontologists do. The hint is really in the name. Paleos means ancient, onto means organism, and logos is for our purposes study. A paleontologist studies all fossilized life, from fish to plants. Really, anything that's part of the fossil record and can help us better understand life on Earth falls into a paleontologist's hands. Nor do paleontologists spend most of their time out in the field digging up evidence for life. That might be a few weeks of the year. The majority of the time, they're researching their discoveries. And they don't deal exclusively in bones either. The fossil record can include things like trace fossils, like footprints, burrows, or even poop. Coroners always perform autopsies. When someone passes away and there's reason to be suspicious of the cause of death, like, say, a set of bloody footprints leading away from the scene, officials usually order an autopsy, or the post-mortem examination of a body to investigate signs of trauma, disease, or other reasons they're no longer among the living. While you'd think coroners are always responsible for splitting someone's ribcage open, sorry for that visual, that's not necessarily the case. While policies can vary by state, often a coroner is a county official who is tasked with investigating the cause and manner of death, but that doesn't mean they're physically performing an autopsy. That job is more often the responsibility of a forensic pathologist or a licensed physician who has received training for such examinations. Autopsies can take a few hours to conduct, but the reason that results might not be available for weeks is due to laboratory testing. As for coroners, they're often elected officials and they don't have to be actual doctors. If they are a pathologist, however, then they can certainly see if you died from heart failure or from your spouse feeding you drain cleaner. Firefighters sit around all day. Firefighters have a lot of cliches to deal with. The fire station Dalmatian, the sexy yet tasteful fundraising calendar. But the worst misconception might be that firefighters sit around and play cards in the fire station until the alarm goes off. Not so. For one thing, firefighters do more than just respond to fires. They're also responding to car accidents and medical emergencies, which adds to the calls that require their attention. If they're not out in the field, they're likely servicing equipment or trucks, maintaining the station, or promoting fire safety in the community. There's also checking hydrants, physical fitness training, paperwork, and a fairly demanding schedule. One popular schedule has firefighters work a 24-hour shift before going off for 48 and then going back on duty again. And because emergency calls obviously take precedence over everything else, a firefighter may not even get to all of their scheduled responsibilities planned for the day, let alone have time to play cards. Meteorologists are always on television. Every community has a favorite meteorologist, that person who makes the prospect of flood-threatening rain or 24 inches of snow seem fun. Usually meteorologists are part of a local newscast, but they're not all broadcasters. According to one estimate, roughly 10% of meteorologists appear on camera to deliver the weather. The vast majority working in the meteorological sciences are working behind the scenes. Another misconception? That they're wrong a lot. Typically, weather forecasters get it right about 90% of the time. The catch? That 90% comes with 5-day forecasts. Once you get out to 10 days, that drops to about half. Librarians only work in libraries. When you think of librarians, you probably imagine a person sitting behind a solid wood desk in a library, surrounded by reference books and eager to assist you in locating a book or hushing a group of local hooligans or making far too much noise. Of course, libraries are stocked with librarians, but that's not the only place you can find them. According to the American Library Association, librarians can and often are recruited for jobs in the private sector. Some organize information for companies, while others provide structure for websites. Others can be recruited as systems analysts, database administrators, or chief information officers. They can manage social media and work in other settings like museums or even hospitals. The reverse is also true. Not everyone who works in a library is a librarian. Librarians usually have a master's degree in library science. A library employee checking out books is more likely to be a library assistant or library technician. No master's is required for those positions, just an ability to make you feel very bad about returning a book late. Midwives only deliver babies naturally and in homes. Call the Midwife. It's a cult TV show about midwifing in mid-century London. It's been running for 12 seasons and renewed for more, but if you've never seen the show, you might wonder, what is a midwife? Well, it's a healthcare professional who assists in pregnancies. They're a kind of guide for newborn care before, during, and after giving birth, so long as the pregnancy is reasonably uncomplicated. While a lot of people think that means midwives only assist in at-home births, it's not really true. Midwives can and often do assist with births in hospitals. Someone pregnant may opt for a midwife over an OBGYN if they want a more natural birth with no or as little medication as possible. But that doesn't mean they can't offer medication like pain relievers if needed, provided they're a certified nurse midwife or CNM. In fact, some midwives will elect not to assist in home births since they want hospital resources on hand if they're needed. A midwife is not the same as a doula, which is a labor coach trained in breathing techniques to assist in births. Some people have an OBGYN, midwife, and a doula. The holy trinity, I call it. Caterers only serve food. Party Down is one of my favorite TV shows of all time, and in every episode, a jaded group of caterers go to some party or event and grudgingly serve food to the attendees. But believe it or not, television is not always accurate. Some catering services go the extra mile to offer floral arrangements or even live entertainment. Some even support pop-up eateries for special events. In other words, they do way more than just light one of those little flame things under a tray of lasagna. One other misconception about caterers and catering. Even though you're the customer, you might not be allowed to keep leftovers. Why? Food safety. Some caterers are sticklers for not leaving food that's been sitting out on a buffet since it might have an opportunity to spoil. Many businesses, however, have a system in place to donate leftover food to a nearby charity in a prompt manner. Nice. TSA officers are law enforcement. TSA, the Transportation Security Administration, aka the Belt Police. Sure, TSA agents can be a little curt, humorless, even rude, but how else can they make sure you don't bring water through security? While their demeanor has a few things in common with law enforcement, they are not actually police. According to the American Civil Liberties Union, most TSOs, or Transportation Security Officers, are not commissioned law enforcement officers, and their role is to conduct screening of passengers, baggage, and cargo. TSA screeners can search you and your baggage at screening checkpoints, but they cannot arrest you. If a situation arises that requires a police presence, TSO agents can reach out to airport police, who do have the power to make arrests if necessary. Tenure means professors can never be fired. In higher education, getting tenured means having an incredible amount of job security. College professors who receive tenure are, in a manner of speaking, given a job for life. But it's not really a perk. Tenure is in place partly so teachers can tackle controversial issues without fear of a career-ending outcome. Say, a university donor doesn't like what a professor has to say about something political. When someone is tenured, retaliation is a lot harder, and thus free speech is protected. But tenure isn't a complete guarantee someone will never be fired. Let's say a professor is found to have engaged in some form of misconduct that goes against the school's policy, like sexual harassment. The university can still terminate their employment. They can also do so if a school's financial situation changes or if the professor's work is severely lacking. You can still get canned, but for the most part, being tenured provides relatively ample job security. Fashion designers have to know how to sew. While sewing is certainly a skill many designers possess, it's not mandatory. What a designer needs to do is communicate their ideas, which can take the form of a sample design, or if they can't sew, an illustration. Designers also relate their ideas through other images like photos. That said, sewing is certainly a useful skill. Tom Ford is said to be quite good at it, and I think he's done fairly well for himself. Opticians are just salespeople. The next time you go looking for that perfect pair of glasses, you might feel like the optician at the counter is trying to get you into a better and costlier pair of frames. While they could be recommending a more expensive pair for a variety of reasons, it's not necessarily because they're earning a commission. Opticians are not the same as salespeople. Optometrists have doctorates and write prescriptions for corrective lenses. An optician is the person who will fulfill that prescription by finding the right fit for you. As we once noted in a list of optician job secrets, the optician is like the eye pharmacist. If they're suggesting something pricier like glasses with UV coating or other benefits, it's probably because they think it will work best for your specific situation. Some eye care centers do offer incentive programs for opticians, but it's far more likely they're working on salary as opposed to getting paid based on sales. All air traffic controllers work at airports. Some air traffic controllers work in airport towers to guide takeoffs and landing. Many others, however, work at terminal radar approach control facilities or route centers. Essentially, controllers at the TRACON centers take over once a plane is in flight and while it's between 20 to 50 miles away from the airport. When it's over 17,000 feet, the route centers assume control for what amounts to the bulk of the flight time. While TRACON centers can be located in an airport control tower, route centers can be miles away from an airport. Storm chasing is dangerous because of the storms. We all saw Twister, so we know that storm chasing carries great risk of being sucked away by a tornado. Actually, storm chasers do have a dangerous vocation, but it's not because of violent weather. It's the traffic. Storm chaser Greg Johnson once told Mental Floss that the thing that keeps me up at night is the driving, not the tornado. The tornado will generally go from point A to point B along a defined path. It's very well behaved. The quickest way is a straight line. It's very visual. You can see where it is and you can avoid it. Driving is a completely different story. Put enough miles on and you're bound to see a bad accident. The reason chasers fear traffic is because people tend to flee when a serious weather event is approaching. Cars can speed, add to congestion, or get stuck under overpasses. All that and reduced visibility from storms can lead to accidents. Ice cream truck drivers make most of their money when it's scorching hot. Ice cream trucks are a seasonal business. No one is really looking for a popsicle in the dead of winter, or even when it's pouring down rain outside. But if you think your local good humor truck driver makes a killing on really hot days, think again. That's because extremely high temperatures tend to keep people indoors where they can enjoy air conditioning. Not so for the hapless ice cream truck proprietor who has to drive around with his windows down. The best temperature is probably closer to 75 degrees. Warm enough to be outside, not so hot that your ice cream sandwich turns into goo within seconds. Secret Service agents take an oath to give their life for the president. There is no more elite security detail in the United States than the Secret Service's Presidential Protection Division, a squad sworn to protect the life and well-being of the President of the United States. It's believed that agents have a duty to intervene at whatever cost, even if it means taking a bullet for the Commander-in-Chief. According to journalist Ronald Kessler, who wrote the nonfiction book In the President's Secret Service, agents do not have to take an oath to lay down their life to protect the President. Kessler says that it's understood that something like that could happen, but they take every possible step to avoid it. One thing you might have heard is that agents travel with several pints of the president's blood in the event they're in need of a life-saving transfusion, and that one is actually true. Wild. I'm already writing a spec script in my head about a vampire assassin. Uber drivers need to own a car. The next time you climb into an Uber and assume it belongs to the driver, well, they might just laugh in your face. That's because owning a motor vehicle is not actually a condition of becoming a contractor for the popular transportation app. All Uber mandates is that drivers be listed as an insured driver on the vehicle's insurance policy. That could mean the driver is leasing it, borrowing it, or that it belongs to a friend or family member. Drivers can also opt to rent cars from Uber via one of their third-party rental partners, though that can get expensive at $260 and up per week. Cars don't have to be that new either. Uber accepts vehicles up to 15 years old, so long as they're a 4-door model and haven't been salvaged or rebuilt. Waitstaff gets all of your tip. Tipping is a cultural custom that many follow because most people understand that those in the service industry cannot get by on their wages alone, at least here in the US. But how much of your tip goes to your server is often misunderstood. I mean, if you think it's 100%, it is not. In many restaurants, tips are divided among waitstaff, bussers, food runners, and the like. Some eateries allow the public-facing waitstaff to divide up the tips, while others pool the money and then divide it up later. Either way, the chances of your entire tip going to just one person are fairly low. Lexicographers decide what words we use. Lexicographers are people who work on dictionaries, writing definitions, and determining what words belong in a thorough rundown of modern language. But contrary to belief, they don't really decide which words we use. They simply observe and report what words society is already using and in what context. Lexicographer Jesse Schiedlauer told Mental Floss in 2019 that the role of a dictionary is not to say what is correct in any sort of sense handed down from above. It is to say what is in use in language, and if people are using something different from how it's used traditionally, that thing is going to go in regardless of whether or not you like it. No cap, Jesse, that is based. Phew! Okay, halfway there. Bonus misconception? Being a YouTube host is easy. You know how hard it is to keep this voice up? You don't even want to know what I sound like in real conversation. And I'm not even wearing my glasses right now. Reading this teleprompter is like constantly deciphering blurry blobs and... All truck drivers are never home. You might think every trucker's life is basically one long, lonely road trip from one side of the country to another and back again. And sure, there are long-haul truck drivers who spend weeks away from home at a time. That's known as OTR trucking, which stands for over-the-road trucking. But OTR is only one of 3 major types of truck driving. There are also regional truckers, whose routes are usually within a 1,000-mile radius. They might be away from home for several days or even a week, but they do get to go home on a weekly basis. The third variety is local driving, which, and you guys aren't going to believe this, is local. Those routes are within an area small enough for the drivers to go home every night. So, what's the catch? Local jobs typically pay less. All archaeologists travel a lot. Speaking of travel, seems like a very integral part of being an archaeologist. It's hard to say how much Indiana Jones is responsible for this misconception, and Lara Croft, and every other fictional archaeologist ever, but it makes sense. You have to go wherever the artifacts turn up, right? In some cases, yes, there are archaeologists who focus on field work, conducting surveys and excavations that could be halfway around the world. But there are also plenty of archaeology jobs that require little or no travel. As the Society for American Archaeology explains, some jobs in federal and state government, museums, parks, and historic sites involve managing collections, public programs, and education initiatives. Or you could work for a firm whose projects are all within a few hundred miles of your home base, and when you're not staffed on an active project per the SAA, you're in a lab or an office doing analysis and writing reports or publications. Professional archaeologists spend more of their time on these tasks than they do in the field. Great news for antiquity-loving homebodies. Not so great news for people who believe everything they see in a movie. Private investigators often break the law. On that topic, Humphrey Bogart characters and every other hard-boiled fictional PI make it seem like the rules don't really apply to them. They can break into your house and tap your phone, they can hack your bank account records, they can get their hands on any FBI file in existence, and on and on and on. Except that they actually can't do that stuff. Private investigators are beholden to the same laws that you and I are. And as United Security Incorporated points out, it's especially important for them to come by evidence in a lawful manner so it will be admissible in court. Plus, PIs must have a license to practice in most states, and it could get revoked if they break the law. They are, however, extremely adept at obtaining intel in legal ways. They know how to question people, how to go unnoticed on a stakeout, and how to use public records to unearth personal information about their subjects. All told, they probably have more in common with journalists than police officers. Tattoo artists will tattoo anyone. If you were to toss back several tequila shots and suddenly decide it's just a great time to get a tattoo, well, you wouldn't be the first. But for every person who's woken up after a bender with some questionable body art and heaps of regret, there's someone else whose tattoo artists saved their dignity by simply saying no. There are a few reasons why many tattooists refuse to tattoo intoxicated patrons. One is just scientific. Alcohol thins your blood. If you're bleeding a bit more while you're getting tattooed, it can dilute the ink, interfere with the artist's visibility, and even make your healing process more difficult. Moreover, a contract can be rendered invalid if one of the parties was intoxicated when they agreed to it, and tattoo artists don't want to be hit with legal action from someone claiming that their tattoo consent form doesn't count. Lastly, there's the reason that tattoo artist Sarah Antoinette Martin told Allure in 2015, "I don't tattoo drunk customers because if they are noticeably drunk, they are pretty annoying and I just want them to leave." Can't argue with that. Hairdressers will think you're rude for skipping the small talk. Hairdressers are masters of chit-chat. They know it's part of the gig and many of them enjoy it. But they also understand that for some people, the most relaxing salon experience is a silent one. Good hairstylists typically just take their cues from the client. Rest assured that your name won't land on a list of rude people if you fail to make a comment about the weather. Bartending is a side gig. Bartending can be a lucrative side hustle that puts you through grad school or helps you expand your Beanie Baby collection or whatever. For some people, however, it's both a passion and a career that might end up becoming bar managers, brand representatives, or something else within the field. Or they might get into competitive bartending, which is a real thing. Take, for example, Diageo World Class Global Bartender of the Year competition. Each year, the world's best bartenders convene to compete in various mixology-related challenges. In 2022, for example, competitors had to mix up a highball using Johnny Walker Scotch and fresh produce. They were also given Tanqueray number 10 gin and told to concoct the perfect martini. The blue ribbon winner was Adrian Mikalchik from Norway, and his family probably isn't asking him when he's gonna get a real job. Interior designers just decorate. Do you have a knack for knowing exactly what throw pillow would make a living room complete? Congrats! That's a handy skill that I wish I had, but it doesn't make you an interior designer. While it's true that interior designers can select furniture, lighting fixtures, and other decorative elements for a space, that's just one small part of the job. They're pretty much designing the whole space from the ground up, which often entails collaborating with architects and building developers to weigh in on details like ceiling height. They may also have to factor in building codes, accessibility, and other safety features. Many interior designers have advanced degrees. If you want people to pay you to decorate their homes without all the schooling and the like, you'd probably enjoy being an interior decorator. To keep the two titles straight, just remember that you have to design a space before you can decorate it. All nutritionists are dietitians. Another pair of job titles that often get conflated are nutritionist and dietitian. Nutritionist is sort of a catch-all term that describes anyone who advises people about nutrition. In some states, you have to be certified in order to call yourself a nutritionist, but that's not true everywhere. Dietitians, on the other hand, are all certified, which is why you'll typically see RD for registered dietitian or RDN for registered dietitian nutritionist after their name. In short, all dietitians are nutritionists, but not all nutritionists are dietitians. In practice, there's a lot of overlap between the two jobs. Both nutritionists and dietitians can do things like devise nutritional plans for schools, educate community members about certain nutrition guidelines, and counsel individuals on dietary and/or lifestyle changes based on their specific needs. Dietitians can also diagnose and treat certain medical conditions, which is something nutritionists cannot do. Translators and interpreters are the same thing. And while we're on the this versus that beat, let's just knock out translators versus interpreters too. This one's fairly straightforward. Translators work with the written word, while interpreters are all about spoken word. Just because you are a great translator doesn't necessarily mean your skills translate, to interpreting. As a translator, you have both the time and the resources needed to land on a final product that accurately captures the essence of the original text. As an interpreter, you need to get the original point across as fast as possible without so much as a quick Google search to help you. It's paraphrasing under pressure. In hospitals, nurses' bosses are doctors. It's not that doctors never tell nurses what to do. Often, the doctor will decide on a treatment plan for a patient, maybe with the nurse's input, and the nurse will carry it out. But nurses in hospitals and other large healthcare organizations have their own chain of command, and there's not a doctor at the top. There's a nurse. That is the Chief Nursing Officer, also known as the Chief Nursing Executive. The directors of nursing report to them. The nurse managers report to the directors, and the staff nurses, also known as bedside nurses, report to managers. There are, of course, many other titles that nurses can have, and not every institution is set up the same way. The important thing to remember is that hospital physicians aren't really in charge of nurses. Some nurses prefer to see themselves as doctors' teammates, in other words, working with them rather than for them. Accountants are math geniuses. If accountants had a nickel for every time someone called them a math whiz, they'd have I don't know, I guess you'd have to ask an accountant for that. It is a myth that all accountants spend their time solving a beautiful mind level math problems. The cornerstone of the job is basic arithmetic: addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. And if you chant those 4 words in front of your bathroom mirror, you'll summon Ed Sheeran. Anyway, here's how CPA Ben Watson explained it for Rasmussen University's business blog. While I enjoy math, I still let Microsoft Excel do most of the heavy lifting. In other words, accountants definitely know their way around a spreadsheet, which is its own type of genius. Clergy members don't pay taxes. You might assume that since churches and other religious institutions are generally tax exempt, the same goes for their employees. That is not true. Clergy members still have to pay taxes, it just works a little differently. In a non-religious job, your employer withholds some money from each paycheck to cover your federal income tax and Social Security tax. But churches don't have to do that for clergy members, so the clergy often have to do it for themselves. Typically, you'd make quarterly payments to the IRS throughout the year. Needless to say, I'm simplifying a complex process. There are rules about which taxes you have to file as an employee and which ones you file as a self-employed person. And some clergy members do make arrangements for the church to withhold their income tax for them. Though not all taxes can really be withheld and stuff can happen with Social Security, I cannot stress this enough: do not get complex tax advice from a 30-second YouTube summary. But in general, if you are planning to become a pastor solely so you never had to fill out a tax form, you should rethink that plan. And you probably wouldn't make a very good pastor anyway. Hotel concierges are mainly for VIP guests. Smartly dressed and vaguely intimidating as concierges may seem, they aren't just there to cater to every whim of whoever's staying in the penthouse. As concierge Rudy Rasmussen told CNN, We're approachable and we're not snobs. Yeah, they can hand you a map, recommend a restaurant, and call you a car. They can also help ensure that your surprise proposal goes off without a hitch or get your kids some kitchen scraps to feed to the local ducks. Struggling to tie your bow tie? Feel free to skip the YouTube tutorial and hit up the concierge instead. Rasmussen even helped facilitate the freezing and shipping of breast milk for a traveling mother on her first post-maternity leave business trip. In short, if you know what you want to do, a concierge can help you do it. If you don't know what you want to do, concierge can give you ideas, I guess, and you don't even have to be the richest person at the hotel. Door people just open doors and hail taxis. Another misunderstood building attendant is the door person. They can do a lot more than hold the door for you and hail a taxi faster than it takes to say the word taxi. If, say, your sister is arriving for a visit while you're still at work, your door person can let them into your apartment. If your huge new TV is being delivered while you're out of town, do not worry, your door person can sign for it. Door people are also responsible for keeping a building secure. That means being aware of who should and shouldn't make it past the lobby. And if they happen to know exactly how many times you order nachos at 2 a.m., well, that's a small price to pay for feeling safe. Software engineers can fix your broken device. Bringing your janky printer back to life is no job for the nearest software engineer. Why not? Because printers, phones, computers, and all other physical devices are hardware. Software engineers deal with, you guessed it, software. Programs, apps, operating systems, tech you can't touch. If your device is malfunctioning due to a software problem, then sure, a software engineer might be able to diagnose and maybe even fix it. But don't assume they have the knowledge needed to repair a piece of hardware. And if they do end up being able to help, at least get them a Starbucks gift card or something for their trouble, come on. Dog trainers don't need people skills. Dog training might seem like the ideal career for anyone who loves dogs as much as they hate people. It is not. Successfully training a canine requires quite a bit of communicating with its owner. For one thing, the owner needs to tell you what behaviors they're hoping you can address, and they can also shed light on the circumstances that could be causing those behaviors. Furthermore, training does not end when a session does. You have to teach the owner how to keep it going at home, and that requires making sure all members of the household are on the same page. As dog trainer Victoria Shade wrote for Chewy's blog, dog trainers have to deal with fights, temper tantrums, crying, and a variety of other misbehavior from the human end of the dog leash. We're often pulled into family drama during the training process, whether settling disputes between spouses or acting as the bad cop when the kids won't listen to mom. Even though our primary skill sets are based around our canine students, the reality is that dog trainers have to be able to successfully manage various human personalities while simultaneously keeping our canine students engaged and happy. Being an organized people person is all you need to succeed in human resources. People skills are a must-have for human resources representatives, who also have to deal with fights, temper tantrums, crying, and a variety of other misbehavior from humans. But your HR rep might find it a little reductive if you act like they're just a friendly person with a penchant for color-coding schedules and pushing papers. As its name suggests, human resources is responsible for all things related to the people side of a business: hiring, firing, training, and paying people, keeping employee records, resolving interpersonal conflicts, and so on. But they also have to do things like make sure the entire company is following labor laws and know the industry well enough to offer competitive salaries and benefits packages. There's also a data side to HR that often gets overlooked. Take, for example, employee turnover rate. HR reps have to calculate that, see how it measures up against other companies, and figure out how to foster an environment that will make employees want to stick around. Which reminds me, Hillary, if you're watching this, I would like a gumball machine in the studio. One of the tall ones. Copywriters write copyrights. Look, I get it, homophones are hard, but copywriting, as in W-R-I-T-E, has nothing to do with copywriting, R-I-G-H-T. A copywriter writes copy as in text. There are countless different kinds of copywriting. Newspaper advertisements, product descriptions, social media captions, newsletters, etc. You could specialize in one arena or do a little bit of everything. A copyright, on the other hand, is the right to produce and distribute copies of an original work like a song or a book. Copywriting is writing copy. Copywriting is securing the right to copy something. Pro athletes just chill during the off-season. After football season ends, some NFL players' social media content goes from all football all the time to lots of random fun stuff. In the months after the 2023 Super Bowl, for instance, Kansas City tight end Travis Kelce hosted Saturday Night Live, and Eagles quarterback Jalen Hurts appeared on the cover of Essence. Even Tom Brady treated himself to eating a strawberry or something after winning Super Bowl 55. Actually, it was tequila. But anyway, the point is that the life of any off-season athlete can seem awesome. Extravagant vacations, cool media appearances, and generally just relaxing. That's not completely wrong, and professional athletes do often take time off from their sport altogether. In 2013, former Olympic runner Dee Dee Trotter told Outside Magazine that she doesn't run at all for 6 to 8 weeks after a season ends. During that time, she said, "The only running I do is if I'm running from my bed to the fridge." But apart from a brief break, pro athletes spend a lot of the off-season in training. They work with trainers to develop exercise plans that'll help them achieve their goals for the upcoming season. Some might need to rehab injuries, while others focus on improving weaknesses. Cross-training is popular too. An NHL player might pick up tennis. In other words, a pro athlete's typical off-season schedule probably still includes more exercise than some people do on their most active day. Esports players have unhealthy lifestyles. The stereotypical image of an esports player is someone who lives on fast food and never leaves their gaming chair in a windowless apartment. Probably their mothers. Not only is this unkind, but it's also not very accurate. In a 2020 study, researchers at the Queensland University of Technology surveyed esports players from around the world and found that they drank less, smoked less, and often were at a healthier weight than the general population. Many competitive gamers view fitness as a way to improve their game. Staying in shape can help them maintain lightning-fast reflexes, and eating well can keep them mentally sharp. Postal workers must deliver your mail no matter the weather. Neither snow, nor rain, nor heat, nor gloom of night stays these couriers from the swift completion of their appointed rounds. This declaration makes it seem like a mail carrier will get your Christmas gift to grandma during a blizzard or die trying. But contrary to popular belief, it's actually not an official creed of the United States Postal Service. Per the Smithsonian National Postal Museum, it's a translation of some text from an ancient Greek work of Herodotus describing the Persian system of mounted postal carriers around 500 BC. Architect William Mitchell Kendall engraved it on New York City's James A. Farley Post Office in the early 20th century, and it's been associated with USPS ever since. Postal workers do not swear an unbreakable oath to deliver your mail in any conditions. Here's what USPS has to say about it. Carriers are not required to deliver to locations where safety issues such as threatening animals, slippery steps, snow-packed paths, or icy overhangs create perilous conditions. While our goal is to deliver the mail, we stand by the decisions of local managers and/or carriers when delivery is suspended due to an immediate, serious safety concern, particularly during changeable weather conditions. Sometimes USPS higher-ups will suspend service across a whole region, which is what happened when a polar vortex swept through the Midwest in 2019. But mail carriers can make their own judgment calls too. Good thing to keep in mind next time you're procrastinating shoveling the snow off your front steps. Lifeguarding is just the summer job for high school and college students. Students have the summer off, and beaches are busy in the summer. Ergo, students and lifeguarding are a match made in heaven. And yeah, lots of students and teachers do lifeguard as a summer job. But there are plenty of full-time, year-round lifeguarding positions too. Indoor pools for one, and also beaches in places like California, Florida, and Hawaii that are open for visitors 12 out of 12 months. In these places, as the United States Life-Saving Association explains, there are many lifeguards who work full-time in jobs that are considered similar to police or firefighting jobs. In certain areas, including Los Angeles County, the lifeguarding force is actually a division of the fire department. Therapists don't need therapy. Assuming that therapists can always just therapize themselves is a little like thinking surgeons can perform surgery on themselves. Therapists have problems just like the rest of us, and it can be helpful to get an outside perspective on them. In fact, some therapists even feel that going to therapy makes them better therapists. Here's how Dr. Ryan Howes, a licensed clinical psychologist based in California, explained it to Wondermind. When a client wants to talk about family issues, I don't want my own family issues to drive my response. I want to be able to identify and manage every bias I have. So I go to therapy to understand myself better, to know why I feel and behave the way I do, and to identify any blind spots I could be bringing to my work as a therapist. Health inspectors dislike eating at places they've inspected because they know too much. You might think health inspectors abstain from patronizing restaurants in their jurisdiction because of all the horrific health violations they've seen there. But there's another reason they may try to steer clear of those spots. It's conflict of interest. As one health inspector told Mental Floss back in 2017, if you give them a low score, they might come back with, well, you had a sandwich here last Tuesday, we can't be that bad. I've also gone to places just for a beer and they've brought me fried pickles on the house. I can't accept those. You can't be bribing a health inspector with fried pickles. You know who you can be bribing with fried pickles? A Mental Floss video host. Thanks for watching this supersized edition of Misconceptions. Which misconception was the most surprising to you? For me, I'm so excited to finally get a haircut where I can just sit in silence the whole time. Just nice, uncomfortable silence. Nobody's saying a thing. Ah, God, nope, I'm gonna feel too weird. I'm gonna engage in the small talk. I'm sorry, I can't. I'll see you next time.